Hulk's cousin, She-Hulk aka Jennifer Walters, is a character who sometimes is said to only be a female version of the Hulk by some fans. And while that was the original concept that Stan Lee had wanted for the character in my opinion is far different from her cousin, for a couple of reasons. One is the feeling about being a Hulk. Bruce is not a fan, for obvious reasons, but Jen loves being She-Hulk, embracing it as being a part of herself. As well as being in full control of her Hulk form, unlike her cousin, who has vague control of it, but for the most part doesn't have any control of Hulk. And another reason what makes her very different is that she's well aware she is a comic book character, and can even manipulate the comic itself to help herself in the narrative she is in. Years before Deadpool did it. Which is awesome that a lot of people who saw the Disney Plus show had accused her of stealing from him, when reality is the other way around. This was started in her solo series in 1989, starting 2 years before Deadpool would even debut in comics, and 8 years before Deadpool ever even broke the fourth wall in comics. Which, if you would like, I would also be up to making a video on that as well. In her series, She-Hulk would start off by simply just talking to the reader, but would soon be mentored by fellow fourth wall breaker, Blonde Phantom. A hero from the Captain America days who also broke the fourth wall. She would teach She-Hulk to be fully aware of being in a comic, not just talking to the reader, but also using this ability to her advantage. We see Blonde Phantom teach her about what is established as well as what isn't. As in a love interest who says to be married later on, Jen questions why he was even flirting with her, to which she's told when they were flirting, he wasn't technically married at that moment because he was only married when it was established that he was in story. And whatever he did prior to that, despite going against what is said later on, doesn't really matter, as that yet to be established. This is a fairly funny commentary on retcons, which I really enjoyed. Even if it's not fully delved into, I did think it was really funny, because it very much is in the same nature as a lot of retcons. In this series, we see She-Hulk burst through ads to get to the next page, as well as just jump between panels to get to a different scenery. Which is both funny, but also useful narratively. If you want the character to be somewhere else in the story, just have her go there. Sparing time between showing how she did it and just, she's there now. However, I did see some people saying that this is lazy writing, which I can see as well. However, even if it is, I personally do think it is fairly funny, and it does work very well narratively. We would also get covers for different issues with her breaking the fourth wall in very clever ways. My personal favorite being issue 40, which has a cover of her naked on it, covering herself up with the Comics Code Authority approval sticker, a code that banned nudity. She-Hulk's comics actually had quite a bit of story points involving nudity. However, done fairly tastefully at almost every moment that they included it. For example, there'd be a storyline where Jen herself would find herself struggling when her nudes were leaked. Something that she felt very hurt by and she had to deal with. Feeling just taken advantage of, as something so personal to her was now out there. There'd also be a time where she would jump rope naked in a more comedic fashion than the previous point I just made on the nudes of hers getting leaked. Both of these instances, in my opinion, were done very tastefully. But yet again, this is just my opinion, you can disagree with that. And my personal favorite moment of her breaking the fourth wall in her series would come from when she faced an Alpha Flight villain, who is able to erase reality, to which she just rips through the white pages remarking that she isn't going to let her book get cancelled because of this guy. Because fans really disliked him in the Alpha Flight comics, questioning as to why it even isn't her comic. Since this series, she would continue to do this gimmick but tone down, mostly in comedic occasions. Would there even be a moment in Heroes for Hire where she would argue with the narrator of the comic, who has narration boxes where he's surprised that she's yelling at him, which I think is my favorite use of narrating boxes ever done in a comic. It's also funny to see that she's trying to fire him, while Luke Cage in the background has no idea what she is doing, and just thinks she's crazy. However, there would be an entire decade where She-Hulk would not break the fourth wall in comics. Some even felt that it meant that the character no longer thought that she was a comic book character, but instead thought she was an actual person. which did rub some fans the wrong way, as it is something that the character definitely was popular for. But that would be revealed to be not true. She very much is capable of still doing this, but does it more on occasion. Not wanting to think about the fact that, yeah, she's not a real person that much. And she would once again use it in her ongoing series starting 2022, where she would once again break the fourth wall to rip pages out, trying her best to prevent the story from continuing, as if it does, Jack of Hearts dies. Which doesn't actually die, but she thinks he will. It's actually a pretty sad return to what was a comedic gimmick. Having it return in a way where she's using it to try to save the man she loves, desperate to save him. It was a huge moment for the character, as it's been the first time where she had used it for literally a decade. However, to see that it was her last resort kind of implies that she doesn't like doing it anymore. I'm not entirely sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing for the character. Personally, I love the character regardless, and I'm currently reading her current series, which I've been doing reviews on. If you're interested, go watch them. I have a playlist. And personally, I really like the series so far. And despite the fact that I do miss her breaking the fourth wall, and even though she only did it once in the entire series so far, I do still enjoy the comic book series, and I still enjoy the character. And I'm guessing I'll likely continue to like the character, as she is one of my favorite Marvel characters, along with Nightcrawler. Like most of you probably know, She-Hulk also broke the fourth wall in her own MCU TV show, this time talking to the camera on more than one occasion. In a way, being the narrator herself this time. However, would eventually break out of her own series onto the Disney Plus platform, as well as talk to Kevin Feige, and even talk to her show's writer's room. As well as writing Daredevil into her series finale, liking him so much. And ask when the X-Men are going to join the MCU. Which I must say, thank you for Jen, because I like Daredevil and the X-Men too. However, unfortunately, we did not get an answer on the X-Men when they're going to join. Even though I know a lot of people dislike this series, I personally really did enjoy it. I did have problems with certain elements of the series, mainly the CGI. But I would say I like 75% of the series, and of that 75% of it, the majority of it was actually She-Hulk herself, even if I wasn't a fan of what they did with Hulk on the show. And I thought they handled the fourth wall breaking fairly well on the show, even if I think they could have done a little more in some areas, while also maybe holding back in others, because I do think that the character narrated maybe a bit too much. While I also think it would be funny to have seen her go through a commercial, like she did in the comics when she went through an ad. And that's it. Like always, please like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!